professional here. I was just making money. All right, morning everybody. If I could just have your attention briefly. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk. Appreciate you coming out. First, I want to introduce Peggy. She's behind the bar, and there's always good things at the bar. So if you want to buy me a drink, we'll do our featured specialty drink. Featured drink, the tennis elbow. Peggy created it. I'm sure it's awesome. And then there's some snacks she brought you as well. The table to my right is Rachel. There's Rachel from OAW. There's some things for you on that table she brought. Very nice for her to bring that stuff in. So make sure and stop by and check that stuff out. We're going to start today with our HP Director Manager, Tim Hartwick. He's going to cover equipment issues. All right, he'll go over racket string, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to hand it over to Leanne and Charlotte, who are going to fix all of your elbows. I just guarantee that you're going to fix it. So enjoy yourself, make yourself at home, and you ready to go?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, you're in charge.
I have my racket back though. I'm glad that the pressure got put on them that they'll fix your tennis elbow and not me.
We forgot
I think that's important. I think that's good. So I'm going to talk a lot about equipment, and one thing that's important, I want you guys to be able to stop me in the middle of this, and it actually might help if some of you have rackets. We're going to talk about some of the equipment on your, some of the specifics of your rackets. We're going to talk through that, but again, please stop me in the middle of this because there'll be some good questions to kind of talk through. I believe in this in coaching tennis, but I also believe in this with equipment, is that tennis and picking your equipment, it's more about pros and cons. So you're going to get certain things and you're going to lose certain things based on kind of changing your equipment. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just string tension. This is probably the most common thing we talk about with tennis elbow is going to be strings. When we talk about string tension, you can honestly just think of it as like a rubber band. This rubber band has no tension on it right now, essentially. This will move a lot, right? So this can absorb a lot of energy when it doesn't have a lot of tension. When it's really stretched out and it's taut, now it can't. Now it's just going to be a lot stiffer. So one of the first things we do when people are suffering with arm issues, we just lower the tension of their strings. And again, like, you have to experiment a little bit to kind of know what's right for you. If you have your racket or you're interested, these all say, on these rackets, it will say kind of where. You'll see in different spots. Sometimes it's up here, sometimes it's down here. It'll say what recommended tension should be for your racket. I would say in general, it kind of depends on the strings that you're using. And if you can always talk with the pro who you're working with. General kind of idea of what a normal string tension would be in between like 50 and 60. But if you're really suffering with tennis elbow, going in the 40s is not a bad thing. I hit tennis balls all day. The rackets that I play with are strung at 46 pounds. The racket that I feed with is strung at 32 pounds. That thing is a trampoline. Balls are just coming off of it. But I have it that way because I hit tennis balls all day. I'm trying to really not make sure I'm not having too much shock go through my arm. So one of the first things you can do is honestly just lower that string tension. The lower the string tension, like I said, the more that ball trampolines off your racket. But you get a little more power out of it, so you get power, and you get a little more spin because those strings can move, so they grab the ball a little bit more. The tighter that is strung, you'll get a little more precision, but you lose a little bit of power. So it reins that ball in for you, but again, it's just pros and cons as we talk about this. The next piece, and again, any questions on any string tension stuff, please interrupt me. Happy to chat. All right. We'll talk about types of strings. There are a ton of different types of strings out there, but if we kind of dive into, like we say, there's like two options. We'll say there are polyester strings and there are synthetic cut strings. Okay, polyester strings are like what Rafa Nadal and a lot of the pros use. These are going to be a lot tighter types of strings. They're going to be a lot stiffer. We use these strings because they grab the ball a little bit better. If you ever get a chance to grab these strings, they got a little more texture to them, so they grab the ball better. You'll notice if I bend this string, it's going to kink. So what that means is it's a little bit stiffer, and you can see it gets kind of stuck here, right? So now the string is starting to kink, so it's a little bit stronger of a type of string. It just makes your playability a little bit easier. If you switch this, we go to the synthetic cut string, you can already tell already this string is a little more moldable, right? It can bend. So this one, if I kink it, I can get right back out of it again. So these strings are softer, so we use synthetic cut strings quite a bit for tennis elbow prevention. So again, we have people use all polyester strings or all synthetic cut strings, or we'll have them even use a hybrid where we call those strings that go up and down here. These are called the mains, and then over here going across, we call these the cross. It's pretty simple. But you can do a hybrid where going down, we might do polyester strings in the mains, And then we might do synthetic cut strings with the crosses, and this allows you still to have the playability of those polyester strings, but also it just softens up your racket by adding those synthetic cut strings. And again, there are so many different types of strings out there. Most of these strings, if you ever look at the packs, and we have some of these at the front desk too, you'll see on the back, they'll have like little like ratings of durability, power, control, comfort, etc. So whenever you're shopping for these, if you're at Les Louise or you're looking online, they'll have this information too. So you can look through all of this. And again, a lot of it's going to be personal preference, and kind of you'll have to feel out and experiment with things. Many of you have tried rackets, I'm sure, and you've gone through like 10 different rackets as you're trying. And you're like, I don't know, I can't tell the difference. You know, you'll have to kind of feel what's best for you as you kind of go through this.
And there's the gauge of the string too.
The gauge of the string, yeah, the gauge of the string will help a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be the biggest thing. So much more of it is just going to be the tension, and it's going to be based on what type of string you choose. The gauge of the string at the end of the day. So for gauges of string, just so we're all on the same page, the lower the number. So a normal, most strings are going to be at 16 gauge. Okay, that's what you see most of the time. But you can get a bigger gauge of string, which means it's a bigger, like a thicker segment. You go like 15 gauge, you might even see 14 gauge sometimes. And if you go lower, you go higher, so 17 gauge, the string just gets thinner, right? And there's like little pros and cons to all of that too. Again, the thinner the string, you get a little more spin. The thicker the string, the more durable it is, right? So that's going to be, again, pros and cons. But the big pieces are going to be what type of string you throw in your racket and what tension you string it at. Any questions on any of that? Must be killing it. Yes.
I like to be great.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, hybrid stringing,
Yep.
is what you said, right?
Mhm.
And string tensioning.
Yep.
So, do you go with the same string tension for both crosses and mains?
Yeah, that's a good question. Every string's a little bit different. I usually, if I do a hybrid, I'll string the polyester strings a little bit lower because those are naturally a little bit stiffer. So for example, if I was doing a hybrid and I wanted that string tension to be a little closer to 55, I probably actually string the synthetic cuts at 55, but I'll string the polyester strings more at like 53 or 52. You always want to go a little lower. Polyester strings, they'll even say on these packs, so like these Lexilon strings, it's a very common polyester string. It'll say on here, you want to string this 10% lower than what you normally do. So for polyester strings, they are meant to be strung lower. They're not meant to be strung super high. They're not meant to be pulled quite as tightly.
Last half of the question,
Okay?
if you don't mind.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. In your opinion, when you string something fresh, how much of that string tension is there? Some of us go 3-4 months sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
And is there a degradation of the string tension?
Yeah, there is for sure. And part of it depends on how long you play. So strings break because obviously of how often you hit them, but it's the strings rubbing against each other. So if you hit with more spin, you break your strings a little bit faster. And obviously the harder you swing, the more spin you get, the more power you get. So you see those strings break a little bit faster. So if you naturally hit a little bit flatter and you're not hitting those balls as often, you're not going to break those strings quite as quickly. That tension will change. We joke about this, but things like leaving your rackets in the car when it's really hot or really cold, like we're talking extremes. You can leave your babies in there every once in a while, it'll be okay, but they will change a little bit, and obviously the more often you play with, but they do lose tension slowly over time as you continue to play with them.
So what is your suggestion for somebody that is on court 3 times a week, as an example?
Yeah.
How often would you suggest restringing?
I say every 6 months is usually a good amount of time. Would be fine. You know, if you really were picky about it, you could do every 3 months. The reason why I say every 6 months, and I would do kind of the spring and the fall, is because those are going to be kind of like, okay, so you just made it through the winter and the temperature changed a little bit. Now you go into the spring and it stays a little bit hot. So I usually would go that way. I would go spring to fall and then redo it again, fall going into spring, every 6 months. Yeah, for sure. The next piece we're going to start talking about rackets. Racket weight is going to make it. This is a one that is a pretty hot topic with tennis elbow and things. The general idea is that a heavier racket will do more of the work for you, so your body does not have to. So if you play with a heavier racket and you can handle it, and that's going to be a big key, that your technique doesn't break and your body can handle a heavier racket, that will then do more of the work for you when you hit. Then you don't have to do as much. If you play with a lighter racket, then you're going to have to do a little more of the work to provide the oomph. You're going to have to swing a little bit harder. So a lot of times people think like, oh, I should go to a lighter racket if I have tennis elbow. It actually is almost the opposite. As long as you can physically handle it and your technique's not breaking, because again, we're not going to dive into this, but there are certain technique issues that cause tennis elbow as well. But you want to play with about as heavy of a racket as you feel like you can handle. The weight of rackets is also in different places. There's called head heavy rackets, which is going to be the weight's going to be up here. And there's going to be head light rackets, which means the weight's down here. We tell people a lot of times who are dealing with tennis elbow, you want to pick a little more of a head light racket, have a little more of that weight down here. Because if all of that weight's up here, you always have to try to get that weight around. If that weight's here, just a little sturdier, having that weight in the handle makes your life a little bit easier. Okay? Any questions on that?
Are you gonna look at our rackets?
I can look at rackets for you guys. Yeah, I'm happy. I'll be around for a little bit. I'm going to dive. I'll be in and out. But again, you can always send me questions on this stuff too. And again, just so you guys know where all this info is, it's going to be somewhere, and it's in different spots, so it takes you seconds sometimes. But like for this racket, it's right here. When rackets are head heavy, they'll usually say HH. And when they're head light, they'll usually say HL. And there'll be a little plus or minus here on the bottom that'll kind of indicate some of that stuff. Okay?
What about when they list swing speed?
Oh, we're really diving into it. I'm not the swing speed for the sake of the conversation for tennis elbow today. I don't think that's going to have a big deal with tennis elbow, but stiffness of your racket is going to be the next thing we're going to talk about, and that's going to be in this information as well. We'll talk about racket stiffness. Racket stiffness is essentially you're not going to be able to bend your racket, right? But it's essentially how much does that racket give when you make contact. This racket, the head extreme, and there's a lot of different versions, Wilson clashes. I can give you examples if you want to chat outside of this. These rackets have a little more bend to them, so when you hit, they flex with the ball a little bit, so that gives a little bit more, and that's going to be nicer on your elbow. Rackets like Babylop Pure Drives, these are super stiff rackets. They don't give as much. And again, there's pros and cons to this. The stiffer the racket, it doesn't give as much, so it might make you a little more accurate, people might say, in hitting your shots because that racket's not bending quite as much. It won't give you quite as much spin per se in those moments, but then a racket like this that's a little more flexible, it'll kind of shape with the ball a little bit more, and you might lose a little bit of accuracy, but again, it's a little bit of personal preference here, but that's the general idea behind it. And again, that stiffness rating is going to be in that information on your racket somewhere.
So going back to weights, one of the things that I've done is go on just to vary things out is to go with lead tape.
Yep.
People can you can play around with the positioning
Yep.
and how that affects the game.
Totally. So I talked about my rackets. The racket that I personally like to play with if I was competing, I got a lot of lead tape in the handle, and I have some lead tape up top. Because again, a heavier racket it does more of the work for you. And so I like that. It hits the ball a little bit bigger. But then in the racket that I feed with, I have no lead tape in that racket because it just makes I want to have a nice light racket when I'm just feeding balls and I have that tension super loose. So again, it kind of just depends, personal preference. But again, what I said is a heavier racket, if you can handle it, will do a little bit more of the work for you. But if you're not able to handle it well, and so you're getting yourself in goofy positions with your racket, now you're losing your technique. This would be a really bad position to be hitting a ball because I have this arm flexed in this position. I'm sure they're going to talk about these things. But this would not be a good situation for me if I was trying to hit a ball, but then I couldn't get that racket around, and now I'm hitting it in a poor spot. So you have to be able to handle the weight of the racket when you are hitting it. Otherwise, you might make the problem worse. That's going to be important. Yes?
Does the size of your grip make a difference?
You guys are just leading me through the same thing. The next thing is going to be the grip of the racket. So I brought this. This is a 26-inch racket. It's a little baby racket. This is, I think, a 0 grip size. You can see my hand is fitting all the way around this racket, so this grip is too small. Okay? We tell people a lot of times a good grip is going to be if you can just comfortably grab it, and if you can fit your pinky in here. This is kind of the idea of a proper grip size of what people would recommend for you. Now, there's obviously a preference. Some people like smaller grip sizes. Some people like larger grip sizes. Okay? It's going to be a little different depending on what you like. The smaller the grip size, the more I have to squeeze it and then try to turn it as I am hitting. So a smaller grip size, you're going to use a lot more muscles, and that's going to, again, possibly aggravate your tennis elbow if you're dealing with that. The larger grip size, it almost stops you from squeezing the racket so tightly, because it is a little bit bigger of a grip size, and so you're going to more easily be able to you're not going to have to grip it quite as tight to get the racket to do what you want to do. It is easier to get spin on the ball with a smaller grip size, right? That racket can kind of rotate your hand a little bit differently. So it's going to be a little bit tougher if you have a bigger grip size. And again, these are just the pros and cons of the things that you're kind of choosing here. Any other questions on rackets? No questions on rackets. All right, the last one. And Scott and I were, oh, yep.
Quick one. What's your opinion about dampeners other than for decoration?
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble with some of these questions. I do think dampeners do something, but your little like $2 rainbow dampener you put on here is not really going to do that much at the end of the day. What I notice with dampeners, the reason why I have dampeners on my rackets is because they make a pingy sound, and I don't want to hear that. I don't think the dampeners make too big of a difference. If it's helping you with placebo effect, is in your brain, your dampener solving your tennis elbow, keep that tennis dampener on there, right? But I don't think they make a gigantic difference. There's a reason why dampeners are not expensive, is because they're not really doing that much for you, right? Any other racket questions or equipment questions? Yep.
I'm just thinking in terms of coaching, and sometimes kids are coming in with old rackets,
Sure.
and sometimes the sizes are wrong, and I do suggest that they put over grip on. How does the over grip impact things, especially on the junior varsity level?
Yep.
And then secondly is just the, again, I guess I'm thinking more in terms of proper grip now. So just
Yeah, we're gonna start diving into techniques soon, so we'll be in danger here shortly. But the big thing with having an overgrip is like having an overgrip or some way to more easily grip your racket obviously makes it a little easier for you to manipulate the racket. So for the discussion of tennis elbow, having a fresh grip on your racket should only help you in being able to better grip that racket. You're not really straining those muscles maybe quite as much. That's probably where I would go with that. But we can talk technique stuff a little bit later on that too. The last thing to kind of chat through, and this is going to possibly, Scott and I were joking about this getting us in trouble here, tennis balls. The fresher the tennis ball, the nicer it's going to be on your elbow. The more dead a tennis ball is, then it's going to be a little tougher on your elbow. And before you ask questions about the ball cart, know that we do change them quite regularly. So, for example, we have a pretty good gauge of where they're at. So this last time we switched them every 6 weeks because they just died a little bit faster because it's a little colder outside. But normally it's every like 8 or 9 weeks. That's honestly, you'll find that we're actually pretty good with that compared to most clubs. But when you play, if you're dealing with tennis elbow, just make sure you're popping open a fresh can of balls. It'll be nicer on your arm. I do think that's important. And again, the reason why Penn balls are the cheapest balls are because they are the worst tennis balls. I hope nobody from Penn watches what we're recording right now. But go ahead and spend an extra $1 and buy yourself some nicer tennis balls so they last a little longer and they help your arm. All right? And that is all I have, unless anybody else wants to ask some questions. I'm happy to address them.
what about balls of different color?
Balls of different color don't do it. Nothing there.
So
All right.
is Wilson the better tennis ball then?
Yeah, Wilson, Dunlop. Again, it's like kind of like all things in life. If you pay a little bit more money for the tennis balls, they will be a little bit nicer, and they will also then be nicer on your arm. Those Penn balls, they die pretty fast. There's times I'm playing with them, and like, yeah, you play with them once and they're dead. Sometimes I don't play with them because I find in the middle of playing with them, they're already starting to lose their steam. And again, so yeah, that's it. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I'll hand it over to the true professionals now.
For the clinic.
Yep, sure.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Leanne. I'm an occupational therapist and a hand therapist at Orthopedic Associates. I've been treating for 25 years, and we see this diagnosis a lot. So this is Charlotte.
Hi there. I'm also an occupational therapist. I've only been out of grad school for 3 years, but I've seen a lot of tennis elbow as well and a lot of sport injuries.
Okay, so our biggest thing, tennis elbow, right? We call it tennis elbow. Tennis players typically don't get tennis elbow. All right, they're getting it from something else. They're getting it from what they're doing at home. They're getting it from their mechanics. They were digging holes to plant bushes in their yard, and then they overuse things. Their posture's not good. Muscle imbalances, sleeping, ergonomics,
over grip, even bad sleep positions, like people curl in like this at night, and all of this gets strained throughout the night.
So that's where it's coming from more than anything. So if you had true lateral condylitis, which would be tennis elbow, that's an inflammatory condition, right? You could have overused it. You could have played 5 hours of tennis, crazy tennis, and you're like, oh, my arm is so sore. Your arm's probably not going to stay sore, though. It's going to be sore. You're going to ice it. You're going to take some ibuprofen. You're going to go home, and you're going to be like, hey, It's better after a few days, right? What isn't going to be better is what we call like an epicondylosis, which is a chronic condition. So that means it's there. Your body isn't even trying to heal it anymore. Like it's just kind of like this underlying problem that it's like whatever, it's there. We're not trying to help it with any of the cells. We're just letting it be. And so that's what we're here to try to teach you. What can you do to prevent it? What can you do to treat it? And what exercises could you do that hopefully keep you out of our office? Although we welcome the business. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Well, and also we want you to stop us at any point. Like we're hoping you ask questions so that we can help you out while we're here, especially specifics, because a lot of this is tailored more to the individual as is. So if you can ask us questions, we can help figure out more to you. But we also brought a bunch of our fun little tools and resources that we use quite a bit in the clinic as well, to show you what treatment looks like on a more regular basis for those more chronic conditions.
So as a discussion,
Yes.
discussion, we want to know from you. Like you guide us, and we're here to tell you whatever we know. So first question: who has tennis elbow? All right. How long?
Probably 20 years.
Okay. And what have you done to help it? Anything?
Well, 20 years ago, it was manageable.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I did too much other stuff, got worse. What am I doing? I got a cortisone injection. I tried physio tape.
Mm-hmm.
I looked online and I did exercises. I stopped playing tennis for a while. I do everything with my left hand that I can.
And you still have it.
Yeah.
So that's one good question. Can I play tennis? You can play tennis if you have tennis elbow. If you have actual tennis elbow, that's a chronic condition, you can play tennis. It's up to you how much you can handle it. Because it's a self-limiting condition. So basically it's like, okay, if I can handle the pain, you can play. You're not going to make it any worse if that's what it is. If you have a different injury, you could have like ligamentous tears, things like that. That's a different story. Then yes, you could make something worse. But in just a true tennis elbow,
You're okay.
you can
It's
do
up to
it.
you.
It's up to you.
It from getting better?
No, it's already there.
Yeah.
And so,
it doesn't matter.
Your
no.
body's not treating it at that
It'll
point.
never get better.
Like it's
Well, it
not
can get
fixing.
better.
It will
It
get
can
better.
get better.
It will get better. But
That's our
right
right job.
yes. So that's what we're talking about, like individual. It's tricky, right? Because everybody has different problems as to like what led to it. Like they were doing something. The biceps is a huge one. People have strong biceps. Tennis players have strong biceps. Pickleballers, if you're pickleballers, you're using the short position all the time. That throws off the mechanics in the elbow and then causes there to be more stress on the outside. So if you're doing that constantly and you're not balancing it out by controlling like other muscles or evening out with your triceps and your supinators and other things, then you're going to constantly be pushing yourself into that position. And one of the worst parts of it is like, it's the nerves. The nerves are telling your brain it hurts. Like that's what's telling your brain it hurts. So there's other ways around that too to kind of manage some of those.
Once the nerves get flared, that's where we have a lot of tricks that help manage the pain. Because once you get a nerve angry, it's really hard to escalate it back down, but it's doable. Like it's definitely doable, and that's where you'll play with less pain.
Yes. Okay. Questions? Anybody? Questions? Anything? Tim? No questions. Any advice?
Yeah, so I've been a tennis pro for 18 years. I played tennis all my life, almost 4 years, and I came down with tennis elbow last year. And Leanne was one of my physical therapists after I had surgery on my elbow. So I played platform tennis for the winter, and it's a different sport, heavier ball, heavier paddle, and I've never had tennis elbow with tennis. It was platform tennis, and so I started some treatment. I did a couple of dry needling sessions, some massage stuff. Nothing seemed to work. I couldn't even pick up this racket in the middle of winter, and that's my livelihood. So I ended up having a procedure, surgery called 10X. It was at OAW, and they go in, they basically use an ultrasound with a probe, and they kind of prod it, poke around in there, and remove some stuff if necessary. And then I had a 8 to 12 week physical therapy rehab with Leanne and another gal named Gail there, and strengthen it back up. When I went there, you do an ultrasound first, and then you do a deep massage, and then they give you exercises to do, whether it was like twisting a rubber rod or
Yeah.
whatever it's called,
Yep.
or like squeezing a screen, just anything to do it. And was not a fun situation, but I had to do it because I couldn't play tennis in the summer if I didn't. So, you know, I had surgery March 6th, and I was hitting tennis balls May 1st. But the process, it was every 2, 3, 4 times a week. I go in there and see them, and they did a fantastic job. Now, I went through all summer last summer without having any issues. It took me a little while to get back to full strength. Started playing platform tennis in November of this year, and I can feel it. So it's not nearly as bad, but once you have it, it's hard to get rid of it fully.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yep.
Leanne is the best. So yeah, issues get her.
We'll see. That's good. So let's do armbands. Everybody's playing with armbands out there. We see them all the time.
We were watching out there too.
Like,
We
how
were
many
like,
do we
oh.
see? Yeah. So do you think it helps? Tell me from your
Mentally.
mentally.
Yeah.
So it's mentally enough that you feel like if you didn't play with it, you'd have pain.
I don't have tennis elbow, but I do it just for dental.
Oh, just to prevent it, you do it. Okay. So can it help? It can help. It unloads the muscles where they attach at the bone, but that may or may not do anything for it depending on what's causing it. So if that radius is out of alignment and you're pulling on that bicep, you might be better off putting your band on your biceps and trying it on your lower biceps to relax that more so that the tension isn't down the line. So it's another way to try it. So people can, and that again, that's individual. Like a
It's
lot of it's
individual.
without us seeing you and diagnosing you
Or
fully.
feeling it, but like based on where, if you feel through your arm where that tenderness is, we're trying to take the load off that like palpable tenderness.
Yeah. So if you said, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to grip, and I'm going to like, oh, it actually feels better when I do it like that, then that's a way you can try it. And we want to put those on like not when it's relaxed. Those muscles should be contracted when you put an armband on. So if you're going to put that armband on, you better have like a nice tight fist so you can put it secure right where that spot is. Same with the biceps, you're going to want to put it on when it's tight so that there's no tension on it when it's relaxed. Some people think like if you squeeze the life out of it, it feels better. It might feel better because you're numbing it, but it's not helping.
It's not doing it
It's
good.
decreasing your circulation.
Please
So
don't do that.
So don't do it that way. You're taking nerves and you're going to not have good blood flow to it. So that's one thing too. So like kind of play with that a little bit and see, does it feel better if I do it there? Does it feel better if I do it here? Kinesio tape is great. That's one of the best ways to kind of help with the pain too.
We use a lot of it. We brought some today. There's a couple ways we like it. I'm noticing a lot of my tennis elbow patients, it's more postural correction to begin with. A lot of people type all day now, or we get opposite where they're out gardening and they're kind of bent like this. So we'll use it to correct that because that's tightening up your bicep as well and shortening it.
Can I tell you
Yeah.
just a little forward?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
A little louder. There's some more.
They're getting loud over there.
Yeah, so a lot of times I'm seeing more postural correction, and so it's not always just the elbow that's the problem, and that's where we like the kinesio tape. Sometimes more even because we can get more specific. Everybody just like sat up like this. So sometimes we like it because we can pinpoint more of the specific area for you as an individual versus the armband where you're trying to slide to that palpable point.
Right. It's kind of more of a crutch. The armband can be than an actual fix for it. So you want to get at the root of the problem.
That brings up, for me, I'm very oriented more towards prevention
Yes. Yes.
than
Exactly.
cure.
Yep.
And what kinds of stretches, exercises, things can we do to prevent having this terrible thing happen?
Yep, exactly. That's when you probably should have pulled in one of the trainers to say, hey, what are you going to show them how to do, right? That is one of the main things. And it goes back to posture, to be honest with you. The very first area you have to look at is posture. You have to look at your posture. You have to get your shoulder blades strong and back. You have to unload that pull on the biceps. Like,
Everyone is here.
everybody is there.
So I usually tell people if this is the head of your humerus and this is your scapula, most people are sitting tip forward like this. So if this is your arm and this is that bone in the back, look how much motion I just restricted. So those muscles, if this is supposed to be pulled back, these muscles are all tightening right here, and then you're getting inflammation all through the joint, and it's radiating down here.
So now if you're shortened somewhere, now you're going to be shortened elsewhere, and then you're going to overuse your wrist, and your radius is going to lift up, and then everything falls.
So
We
that's
call it our kinetic chain.
yeah, it ripples on
Right,
down.
it does, because everything's connected. Right. So that prevention is important. So we talk about like what can you do in the gym. So one main thing you can do is work on resetting your glenohumeral head. So like the head of the humerus, the ball right in here, that's what we want to make sure stays back. So if you're doing certain exercises, those specifically are exercises that we like patients to do, of like pulling all the way out and then being able to like load that back in the socket there. So you're working on getting it strong. A lot of people are doing exercises and they're not even corrected when they're doing it. So you can work all day and do your flies and all this stuff, but if you're still coming forward, you're not working the right muscles and you're continuing to feed into the same pattern. You continue to feed into that pattern, you're going to end up with what's going to show up. Something you're going to see, something's going to happen. So yeah, so if you're going to even do diagonals, you're doing the same idea. That better reset as you're lifting and not just kind of just letting it flow, right? That should always be your gauge, is your shoulder blade. So any strengthening exercise you do, it either has to be stable or it has to engage first. And if you're not focusing on that, they're going to feel different when you do some of those exercises, even if it was just a raise or something like that. Like if you're just doing lat raises and you don't have tennis elbow, that's not going to feel good. Yeah, no. But if that's not back, you're just strengthening in this pattern again. Those shoulder blades have to be strong. That is the core of your arm. If that isn't strong, everything's going to fall apart down the chain.
That's where we usually even recommend, like at the start of the day, try to correct your posture right away. I mean, if we're talking prevention, start your day on the right track so that you're not fighting stiffness here all the way through and getting more stiff as the day goes on. So if you're in bed, lay there and lift your arms over your head. Let gravity pull that shoulder socket down and do little snowy angels. Like get moving before you have to stand up and have the actual day push down.
You get your pecs stretched out,
Yeah.
all of that.
Open
Those
up.
are all ways to do it. Anyone with an active tennis elbow want to come in?
And I'm actually seeing.
Oh, are you? Here we go. Does anybody have it that you want to see? Okay. It hurts right now? All right.
She's only had it for a little while.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh,
It's not a new problem, but we'll figure it out.
It's better, not 100%.
Okay. All right, you want to
Oh, okay. So first thing I'm noticing, do you care if I can go you a little bit? Okay. So this is kind of what we're talking about as far as the shoulder goes. See how this comes forward? This is a lot of you guys just sitting and watching you. See, do you feel how it kind of tips forward right here? Yeah. So we wanna actually give me your elbows, and then give me all of the weight of your arms. There you go. This. See how this gets to relax a little bit there? If you give me the weight, don't resist me, but just there you go. Feel a little shift through here. Yep. It's tiny, but your upper traps are trying to kick in and take over the load of other arm muscles because they're so stressed out right now. So right here, what my focus would be getting these guys to pull back and down. So like little rows like this would be great for you. And you would be the perfect person for laying down and trying to get your arms over your head a little bit and try to get that stretch. Another good way is like a foam roller. If you lay on the foam roller the long way, and then you go like this, you get a little extra leverage to open up.
get these like shoulder blades to kind of like fall back a little bit further. It's like an extra stretch.
Same with the pecs. You're gonna be really tight right here. So opening like a T and just opening through there. But we can try. Do we want to try taping it?
Yeah, let's try taping it.
So
So
even
if we
allergies
hope,
to adhesive. Okay.
Latex.
No.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. These are like
can I poke in here? This is where it hurts. Like right there. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Do you want to do the full stress test?
Let's do it. Okay, so we're gonna have you. That way, if you want, you're gonna squeeze this thing here.
It's gonna feel like squeezing rocks. It doesn't really give you any
And
feedback.
you're gonna tell us if it hurts and you squeeze.
No.
Okay. Where are we at?
Right here we're at about. Oh, go ahead and relax. Good. You're at about 50 at your best.
Okay.
Do you want a stress test? So this one you're gonna try all the way out.
Just do what you can do. You don't have to force pain. If it hurts, you'll just stop. That's fine.
Good. Relax. Any pain there? No. Okay. So there you're at about 45 at the
So
best.
just a little bit. So now we'll use Kayla over there. If she came here and she was gonna work out and she's way out here, you got some exercises you would give her to in the gym?
Come on there.
Yeah, come on up.
Okay, sorry, say that again.
So this is her when we say reach out.
Yeah.
Right? So what we're saying from everybody, this is what everybody's doing. So now you're putting so much stress on this entire line every time you use this arm. You see reach out, you should have this guy set and strong.
We call that like packing the shoulders, like packing the lats. So if you're ever in classes or anything, like pull into those lats. So going back to what she said about like that humeral head, kind of like when she's out like that, that's where you start to see this happen. We want the rotator cuff strengthening, but a lot of like just retraction in the shoulders, strengthening the muscles that hold those shoulder blades like back. So it's a lot of upper back work and not just this. Because you can do this, and it's like you might get here, but you can still have that forward shoulder coming in. So we're working above that 90 degrees to really work on that. And we just see so much like pec tightness too, like she said.
It's so tight in there.
Yes. So it's a mix of the like opening that up, but also like getting those upper like retraction work. That's
Yes, that's
That's
yes,
exactly what we do. I like it.
And so people that need help with those exercises, obviously the trainers here would be able to help you with some of that too. It's not that you need to be at the clinic to see us or anything like that, unless it's super flared. That's what we're here for. But just day-to-day stuff, asking a trainer who can help you with that, make sure your mechanics look good. That's the most important
a
thing.
lot of it is
You walk around there's a whole bunch of people doing things wrong.
yes, yeah. They're doing the move, but it's maybe not like activating the right muscle.
Right.
So
Or feeding into a bad pattern or whatever. So that's where it becomes really important. Okay, so we're gonna show you like one of the best things you can do with tape, besides the big taping technique that you do, is to actually move the skin tissue around a little bit to kind of calm those nerves down so that you don't have that pain coming over the elbow. So that's one of our favorite ways of doing it without getting elaborate and having to like do all of this. It's something you can do to yourself or have somebody at home do for you. So if we like you know where your pain is here. Right there. So now if we say let's do your biceps like we talked about before. Does that make that feel any better? Less pain?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then if I kind of push your radial head back a little bit, that's where the stress is.
So that she's just pushing the bone that like if you kind of go from your thumb all the way up, she's just pushing this bone. A lot of times it gets misaligned. Your radius is right here, and it frequently likes to move in bad directions, especially with some of the inflammation with this condition. So we try to mobilize it a little bit, and sometimes in moving it different directions, we can get a lot of good pain relief, especially for the nerves, because the nerves are on edge from the bone going up a little bit.
So there's an elephant in the room, though.
Yeah.
And that elephant in the room is something that I notice, like say when I go to a high school reunion, I see a lot of old farts.
Okay.
And so many of us are like this, you know, and it's just commonplace. And I see my wife and I are always correcting each other, you know, to stand up straight. So I think it's something that's, you know, we forget to do, or old muscles don't want to do it, or what. You know, so I think that's an elephant in the room that we're all over for the tool.
And it isn't even older people; it's a lot of younger people now too.
Yeah.
What are they doing all the time?
You're
They're on
on
their computer. They're on their phone.
Yeah.
They're always like everybody's like this all the time now. So it's across the board. But definitely, it just comes with less activity too. If you're not doing things as much and you're not focusing on your posture, then over time, you know, this is where we end up, right? So it becomes super important that you stay on top of it. Now, the tricky thing with tennis elbow is it usually only affects people that are between the ages of like 45 and 65, or 40 and 60. A little bit less, maybe 35 on the outskirts, but you don't typically see it in young people, and you don't typically see it in older people. So it's kind of one of those odd things, like
Right in the middle.
right, it's like a middle age issue, right? Like that's what it is. That's when people have it the most. There's one-offs here and there, but typically that's when people end up with it. So why? Because it'll burn out. It'll go away eventually, maybe.
Hopefully.
You're the one-off. You're the one-off. It'll usually go away, but it just, you know, is it going to go away in 3 months? Is it going to go away in 2 years? You don't know. So
Everything's temporary.
everything to one degree. Right, exactly. So we'll show you, we can maybe use some of the pieces.
Oh, did you already cut?
We're going to should we do biceps?
Yeah, should we do lengthening?
Yeah, let's do it. Excellent. Yeah. Okay, go.
Is it true that that's right.
That's right, yeah.
One of my friends is OT, and I couldn't see her yet because I needed a referral until I saw the doctor, and she said
Kinesiotape is the best.
and KT
Yes,
is
yes.
better
Kinesiotape
than
is like the original. And the adhesive
I
moves
thought it
a
was
little
the
bit
same
better. This one still has like a fingerprint to it, which is what you want, an adhesive that has like a fingerprint type thing to it, because then it moves with your skin better. You don't want one with a straight adhesive, because that's not going to be viable enough for your tissues.
The glide goes away.
Yep.
Okay.
What were you addressing? The different types of tapes?
Yes. So there's Kinesiotape, which is like the original brand. That's usually our favorite. It's just designed with a little bit better adhesive to it. Don't judge. We have rock tape, which is like the second best. It works really, really well too. But there's just different types of adhesive out there and different amounts of give.
So you weren't addressing the width of the ring.
You have your arm.
Oh, not necessarily with this. No. They do make really big, thick ones. Actually, to be honest, big surface area is not always what we're going for, because then the specific nerves we're trying to target don't get the relief because you're overloading all of it. So we try to be more specific with the taping versus slapping just a big old
Try your arm down on the triceps. Never grab her arm down.
Thank you for being our volunteer.
Yeah.
This is the one.
I'm glad you're prepared.
I'm playing it. I have to put this on.
You put it on over it. Okay, just because it hurts like a computer. So you do. Okay, that's okay. You can put it up on your right side. That's fine.
But I put it down. That's where
I want to see how. Right, that's where we put it over.
We might mix it up.
We're gonna mix it up and just see out of curiosity. What do you think? Does it feel better that way? If we follow the chain down the line, you get the mold of that chain. So make the muscle through.
Yeah, you have to
You'll
play
find
it
that out
out.
when you play. Right. So if you just poke on it right now, does it feel any different to you?
it wasn't hurting that bit. It's like sometimes it's like a certain spot that really feels. But
So our other tricky thing with that is
So is the it not going at all? Oh no, she's got a little adhesion.
so the skin here, I don't know if anyone can see this or not, this is our stuff that we look at, but you can look at this on yourself too. If you push on the skin, it gets kind of stuck on that bone, which then fires up the nerves that are in there. So those little sensory nerves are going to be giving feedback, hey, this guy hurts, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts, because this is tight right here. So if you can work on like some gentle massage to free that skin up, your skin should be moving like this everywhere. It should be super, super loose. So this is what you're looking for. When you get it into an area where it's not super loose, that can be part of a pain source too. And that's an easy thing for you to work on at home. Sometimes we'll take tape and we'll just kind of move the skin like that. So now you don't have that little adhesion stuck there, and then that moves that nerve out of the way, and then it's try that for you.
Yeah, and you can see it too. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
when you taped her, did you pull hard or did you just put it over?
50% or so.
Yeah.
30 to 50%. So just anchor it. There's never a pull on either end, and then she's on stretch because we're trying to lengthen her biceps. So then we're just kind of pulling it up, and then that recoil of the table slow that biceps down a little bit as a reminder for her to relax.
So I
And
can
then if
show
we use
you
a
with this a
band
little
there,
bit.
yeah, you can show it.
So when it's on the tape, it has, or when it's on the paper, it's got 10% stretch. So you don't want stretch on the ends, or you're more prone to get a little irritation or shivering at the end. So you could get a little blister. So you always want to pull the end off, then stick it on. From there, you don't need more. I mean, like for this, it's more for getting the length. So like 50% max. Some people crank like crazy and they'll go to 100%. That's what we use for a joint correction. Like if someone's shoulder is dislocating, we go 100%. So you don't need 100% for your muscle, or you're going to inhibit how much it can move. So just a little 10% pull, and then go around, take the end off, stick it on. It's super easy to do, but just making sure that the ends don't have any pull. I have seen a few blisters, like people self-taping. And if you were saying high school JV teams, I swear I coach dance. Sorry, not tennis. But kids have this in their backpack like candy, and half the time they're putting it on like crazy ways. It's great, it's so accessible, but like just watch how you put it on so you don't get blisters. That would be a big one.
See if it makes a difference.
Going along with the idea of prevention, are there specific other exercises, or like I do a lot of swimming,
Nice.
other exercises that can contribute to strengthening up the appropriate muscles?
Overall conditioning is going to be good. So especially if you're doing something swimming, this is where it gets a little bit more tailored to each person. Like I said, I'm sorry, I don't play tennis. I danced in college. That was my thing. But you need to look at the opposite moves that you do. So if you are swimming and you're this way, or you're playing tennis and you're coming through this way, I want opposition. I want you strengthening from here and then also strengthening like that. A lot of times we see people are really weak going this way. Have you ever seen like reverse curls in workout classes? It's like, this is one. I hate them. I'm not gonna lie, I hate them, which means I need to do more of them. But anything in this reverse curl is a great way to help strengthen a lot of muscles that frequently get missed. People will do their biceps and they'll hit multiple angles, but they always forget this angle.
Right. And that's exactly.
And that one is so key for keeping your elbow in good alignment as well.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Talk about the lats.
Oh no, we didn't
I
talk about
interrupt
that
you for 1
now.
second. Couple things, because I see many of you on the court. I've seen you all swing. And I get a lot of questions I want to make sure we cover. First one is, sounds to me what I'm learning from this is when you all are in the gym, you got to make sure you do it right. And I don't go to the gym. I have my
We
favorite.
tried, not like.
Yeah. I don't believe in lifting heavy objects for somebody else. Find Kayla or any of her training staff. They can show you very quickly. Because I can tell you, they see you when you're doing it wrong. Ask them if you got. We have a great resource here, her team. If you're not sure, just find any trainer in our black uniforms. Ask them, right? Because if I went to lift right now, I guarantee you she would destroy me for my posture and all this stuff. She'd make fun of me. Again, I don't mean to interrupt. There's some questions I hear from these people. We've talked about this because you know I'm a doctor and I heal myself. Ice versus heat. We've had this conversation. And ibuprofen, Tylenol, like I always have people ask, should I ice it? Should I do heat? And I always say I'm not a doctor, but do them both.
No, you're doing not.
Yeah, right. So can you address that before you get to the other stuff?
Yeah,
That's
you would ice after activity if you know that it's sore when you did it, or if you're doing yard work or you're doing something else that's not even tennis related, and you're using those muscles, you should ice that elbow if it's prone to getting irritated. That's what you would do.
Is that before and after?
That's after.
Just after.
After, yeah. So 20 minutes on, a couple times that evening, probably you can ice for 24 to 48 hours, maybe up to 72, depends on how bad it is. And whereas heat is prior, or heat is just if it's a chronic condition. Heat feels good. So heat keeps the circulation going to those tissues. You can move better, you're more flexible. So yeah, heat would be at any other time aside from right after an activity for those first.
Yeah, I swim, I go in the hot tub.
Yes, there you go. You
then,
stretch.
Then you stretch it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we should stretch prior to. Not saying I do that either, but
No, we shouldn't.
right. You should be warmed up before you do anything. Right? That's the biggest thing. So flexibility. I mean, if you're walking on a treadmill, you're doing something to get your muscles going. That's gonna make a difference too, because everything's gonna be not tight.
That's one of the
and not
biggest
stiff.
things I see here. I see people cut me and take their coats off, go down to the court and start hitting.
That would be. Listen to what I say. Not what I'm right? Listen to what I'm telling you. I warmed up at home.
And there's,
All day long. You were
there's
really.
so many machines that you can just hop on
Yep.
and just get warmed up a little bit.
It does make a
It's
difference.
prevention.
Yeah. And flexibility, like if you're talking about prevention, yoga is super good for everybody. If everything moves well, you're less likely to get hurt. That's proven. That's research studies prove that. So if you're flexible, you're gonna be less likely to get injured. So if you bend, you don't break, right? So that's what you're after. So I mean, really being aware of posture, flexibility, preparation, mechanics. I mean, there's from our perspective, that's what we do all day.
Yeah.
People what to do
What
all
about the
day.
ibuprofen questions? I
I mean,
no
if it's
longer take
inflamed,
it,
yeah, but you shouldn't be living on it. Like, if you're to a point where you've got to like pop it all the time, then you've got a problem. Like, then it's not okay. And that all depends on what you're doing.
I don't do it anymore.
Right.
Can't.
You can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, don't take a
These
lot
are
of
his own
ibuprofen.
questions. You don't have any other questions?
You answer
I
everything.
have
Yes.
I was more so, I guess, is there something in the fitness, and this is more for the, like that is, or maybe it's a record, yeah, like, adult tennis fitness. I mean, as people get, whether it's, and it's proactive, like it's, make sure you're strengthening your shoulders or whatever you're talking about. The other thing that I know a lot of people feel, and I do sometimes, is the hip.
Oh, yeah.
As you move, because there's so much lateral movement. I think, like, if there's room for it, or maybe it's maybe you need to hire trainers. I don't know. but something where people could go to a class to kind of just proactively strengthen the things, being that we're a tennis club, to help keep people healthy. You know what I mean?
Yep, we have a bit for tennis class that we run.
Oh, you do?
We do Alex class does one right now. We've run a few in the past too. That's usually just like a 4-week program. They sign up. We meet once a week for 4 weeks.
I've never heard of that.
That kind of thing.
Right.
We've had it on and off the schedule for a couple years, and then you know if it doesn't run, we might take it off. But he has one that he runs that's not like kind of promoted at the moment because he just has it signed up. You can certainly add one at any point if you have interest. We've worked just a lot one-on-one, like I've seen a lot of do one-on-one, and then we just tailor it specifically towards you. General. Yep. We do workshops once in a while here or there, so we're always open to doing more. A lot of us have been here quite a while where we are a tennis club, so we try to arm ourselves with as much of this knowledge as possible. But if for tennis would be perfect, so you have some interest in that, you know. And that can be like specific, as a in that room, can be tailored towards like, if you guys need more cardio, if you need more of that, just general like prevention of injury, that like it can be tailored towards whatever.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the difference between tennis elbow and golfer's elbow?
Okay. Yeah. You want to take it?
The sides. Basically the sides of it. You get like a medial epicondylitis or a lateral epicondylitis. So
Golfer's elbow is on the inside.
yeah.
And that's because they're
Tennis
getting
elbow's
their
the outside.
Yeah. Outside is
Golf elbow, that sport I play. So that one I can speak with a little more confidence. But like that one is more in just repetitive motion, same kind of thing. It's similar because you're gripping and you're sustaining a grip and you have force on the opposite end coming through. So
And same problem.
same problem.
Same problem down the line. Just
We look at the
side.
same muscles.
All right, so we're going to show you guys one other thing that we
Yes.
do very commonly, which some of you probably have tried, either just on your own or in a clinic, dry needling. So dry needling is great. Dry needling, I'm a fan. Some people don't think it works. Some people are afraid of the pain or the needles. But to be honest with you, it's another way to kick your body's physiology and like make it do something, take care of this chronic problem and get rid of some of the tightness in the muscles. And it really can help alleviate some of the stress. It still isn't going to fix, like if you've got proximal problems, it's not going to take care of that, but it can help some of those other aches and pains that you have along the way. Or maybe the muscles higher that are tight that we get this loosened up. Oh, look, now it doesn't hurt so bad down here. So those are the kinds of things. So we're going to just show you what they look like so you don't.
Yeah,
You are not afraid of it.
They're kind of my favorite. I hate needles. I'm the biggest wimp, but this I swear by. In college, I had some really bad back injuries from dance, and this was like the only thing that I gotta keep doing that kind of helped reset me. They are the world's tiniest, and we can pass them around. They are like not actually needles, which is why I like them. But I call it our microwave trick. We don't have many things in therapy that we can do that like give you that instant, quick result. This, we can poke a couple of muscles, and like I had a CrossFit guy a few weeks ago. He couldn't reach behind his back. He was stuck about here. I needled his shoulder blade. He was like, "Whoa, I haven't done that in years." I'm like, "Well, don't use it now." But it's our microwave trick.
How are they different? I like it also.
Yeah, I love it.
But I'm just curious, how are these different as compared to acupuncture?
It's a lot of it's technique. A lot of it. So acupuncture is more that energy pathway of the muscle. Here we're going for that like palpable knot. It feels like we feel through your muscle, and you know we get that cordy tight. It kind of feels like Laffy Taffy. We're going for that, and we're trying to tap that out, and then the muscle switches.
So, what is it? I've had a lot of dry needle. I've actually probably helped a lot of the doctors on vacations through the years.
Yeah.
But so the dry needling, and then I've had the dry needling just where it's just with the needle, but then also with the electric.
Yeah,
With
with
the
the
stem?
stem.
Yes, with the
Yep.
stem. What is the difference, or I guess what
Depth.
does the stem do?
So the e-stem, like if you've ever had e-stem on the outside surface, you put the patches on the outside,
no,
and then
I'm talking like
this will go inside. So it's like that feeling that you get on the outside of the tissue, right?
Okay,
Now
yes.
you're doing that to the inside of the muscle.
So that's when they hook up like I call
The
it like little
electrodes?
battery jumpers
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
needle.
So it's
So
doing it deep. So it's like targeting those tissues to fatigue them typically, or to help with intense pain.
Because that's when I felt it. It's like it's almost, if you've never had it before, it's like it's almost like a muscle spasm.
It is.
Yep.
Yep.
And then it's a release.
Yep.
Yes.
And it does feel
It's more intense. So
Good.
like if for someone who really isn't just responding to like regular needles, or they're really like they're messed up, like yeah, do something about this. That's what the E-stim will do, because it gets deep into that tissue, and all the other superficial patches that people use for pain or when we do in the clinic, that's all superficial. This is like down in that muscle, like get that muscle to relax.
And sometimes the signal is off throughout the muscle, like the neurological balance of it is off. So when we do the E-stim, you see one muscle twitch at this speed and this muscle twitch at this speed, but by the end of it, they say bye. So you reset the whole. It's really fun to see.
It's wonderful.
Yes,
It is. It's
yes.
great.
What do you think about peptides? Like, have you ever anybody used peptides, or is this just more of like a structural body issue, not like a muscle healing?
I mean, yes, probably, but then you're getting I mean, not from what we prescribe necessarily.
I haven't seen a lot of use of it. I've seen people use it, but I haven't seen great success, I should say. Right.
Okay.
And I haven't seen tons of people use it. But
It's also one of those things that if it works for you, right?
Then do it.
But
It's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But always worth a shot. I could help.
right, you try anything.
Yeah.
Right. If you need it, you need it. All right. What other questions? Does anybody have any other questions?
You solved all their problems.
No, we didn't.
Stretches would you recommend?
Stretches.
Yeah.
So like after you play,
Yeah.
you're looking just like your basic stretches. So you should be again prepared prior, right? So after you've used that muscle, you're looking at stretching out the forearm. If you play tennis or if you were digging,
Yeah.
whatever muscles you use, those are the muscles you should be stretching when you're finished.
I would
So-
also say maybe the pec too.
The pec, yep.
And you can just literally go against a wall like this and try to twist. Because you're gonna be so tight from moving forward.
So yeah, or
But yeah.
any of those, shoulder, in opposite positions of what you've been working in is kind of what we think about. So like you're gripping your racket, you're tight here. Let's get it loose. So go opposite of what you just did. So those are like the easiest ways to think about it. I did a whole bunch of lifting. Now I need to go opposite of that and stretch that out. But, yeah.
A role for TNS, ultrasound, Theraguns, things that are out
Yes.
there.
Okay. Thank you for the Theragun one. That's a good one. That is. Don't beat the heck out of your forearm because you're just going to anger it. Is it going to feel good if you want deep massage? It probably will, but that's not what we're after. So we actually brought a couple of these.
Yes.
These are just little vibration balls. So if that's super flared up, rubbing this across that area where it hurts brings that vibration sensation to your brain over pain, which you can attest to. What gets to your brain faster? Vibration. And you want it low, like it depends on, right, not on the bone. It's going to be more muscular. You're just going to get on the muscle. Yeah, not on the bone, on the muscle to get it to relax.
And what about the kind of therapy, like heat and that? Is that something that really?
Yeah, so ultrasound, it helps stimulate healing. Like it's helping your body try to do what it needs to do. It's another adjunct to like, how do we get our body to take care of ourselves? Let's try to kick it in. So yes, it can feel good. You can do it to relax the muscles, keep the muscles. You can do it for inflammation.
Sometimes you pair it with like a dexamethasone, which is an anti-inflammatory. But again, the goal isn't to let those be what's fixing you. It's supposed to just be a way to jumpstart some more healing.
Yeah.
So if you've been doing that for a while and it's not, like it's
not-
still
that's
inflamed.
not it.
Then you have to change it up.
Yeah, that's not the answer. I mean, a lot of times it's higher up. Like we can't treat it that way here. It's got to be up higher, and then we got to look higher and figure it out from there. That's a big thing.
Would Theragun not be good for there?
Like better up here.
Even there, you still have to be a little careful.
Because it's so bony there too, and the muscles are so. I mean, they're strong muscles, but because it's so bony, like when I think Theragun, I'll whip it out after running and I'll use it on like glutes, hamstrings, quads, those bigger muscle bases.
But you got to be a little more careful with it and everything else. Or it can't be as intense. That's kind of more the issue. Like you got to let up on it a little bit because those muscles. There's so many nerves in there. Like all you're doing is making something else mad. Like you might feel it temporarily because there's going to be something that'll trump what you feel for pain, but then long term it's not necessarily going to be the right answer for it.
We also go into like cross balls,
Yes.
tennis balls on the shoulder, on the arm, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I
That's
mean, it
great.
doesn't vibrate like that, but
No, but that's good for the shoulder blade, right? Because you're getting those to relax. If it's relaxed, then they can bring that back better. Yeah, absolutely.
and then like sometimes just rolling that'd be fine.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, the vibration's more if it's like super flared up because
Okay.
the vibration, again, we're trying to say, what can we get to our brain faster than that pain sensation, and that's one thing that can get there. So that's why we're using that. Just another way to try to calm the system down a little bit.
We do have like the rollers. We have the Theraguns and then we have the rollers. Those we don't use nearly as much, but that would give the same concept, just in a roller form.
Yeah.
And they're complimentary for members. As of January 1.
Any other questions?
Uh,
I think we didn't do bands or showcase, but
Good.
I think that's it. Yeah. Unless you guys are any good.
No, just this building's full of smart people outside of, our coaches can help you with how you swing your tennis racket, but injury stuff, we've got lots of people in this building. Leanne's in the building every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. If you want to watch her, come play
When I
tennis.
come running in.
Yes.
All warmed up and ready to go.
All stretched.
Yeah.
I just want to thank Leanne, Charlotte, Rachel, Kayla, both Tims, anybody else who contributed today for taking the time.
Good idea. Good idea. Thank you.
I had people this morning already ask me, when's the next one for knees? Somebody asked me, we got to do one for backs. So we may have a whole series. Might see you all again.
You won't see us. Yeah, we're hand therapists, but we've got other people that do
But
that.
thank you guys very much. And thanks for everybody for coming. If you got any questions, feel free to keep them here. They'll stay here all day, right?
I mean, nothing else to do.
Make sure you see Rachel at the table too. She's got stuff for you.
Business cards and brochures to get more information.
Go see OAW. They will heal you.
We
decided
also
that.
can do that individual too. Like you don't need formal therapy sometimes. If it's a problem enough, come in. We can give you an exercise program. We can look at what's going on and be like, all right, here's what you should do. And then you do it on your own. That doesn't mean you're like so debilitated that you need to see us 3 times a week or something like that. But we're there for that too. So that's always an
Do we
option.
need a referral for you, or do we
You need a referral, yes. Usually for a lot of it's insurance based, just to make sure you cover your bases. But that's what our ASAP clinic people do, or primary doctors, whoever. But yeah, we certainly can do that as well.
And then it's kind of nice because you get them more accustomed to whatever exercises you see or
What
what
you
you
need.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day. If you can give that back.
No, I didn't. Souvenir.